Can you hear me okay? I can't hear you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's DSS Break. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're here live every week to talk about data science experiences and best practices with leading data professionals in a 15-minute break. And I'm Anna, founder of Data Science Salon, and I'm streaming live here from our headquarters located in the heart of Miami, right next to the Design District. And on today's break, I'm sitting down with Harry Mendell, who's a technology group data architect for the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And Harry has been in fintech for more than 30 years, and he has made a considerable impact over the course of his distinguished career. And in this conversation, we will talk about the insights from DSS NYC, and Harry is also going to share a little bit about emerging industry trends that he has observed since we last spoke. So thank you so much for joining us here, Harry.
Thank you for having me. I'm required by the Federal Reserve to say that everything I say this evening are my thoughts and don't reflect the thoughts of the Federal Reserve. So,
well, thank you. Thank you for that disclosure. It's really nice to have you here. And why don't I just go ahead and dive right in? You have a rich data science background, and you're really highly sought after for consulting and commentary. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey, kind of how you got to where you are, how you got into the fintech field, really in the beginning of all of it? Uh-oh, I think.
I hope, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Signal stopped for a second, great. So I got into fintech through an interesting route. My thesis was in computer vision, and I got interested in computer music, and I invented a new type of music synthesizer called the sampling synthesizer, and had clients like Stevie Wonder for a while, and that was a lot of fun. It was very interesting, and as this was before the home computer became popular, and when that came out, I had a friend who introduced me to an investor that wanted to see if I could produce something for the home market. Now, this was before the MIDI interface was even invented. And this fellow made his money trading options on the American Stock Exchange. But he did have some interest in me working for him, which I didn't realize at the time when he was making his investments, and he convinced me to develop some algorithmic trading, which I knew nothing about at the time, for the options market. This was in the 1980s. So this was like one of the first times this was done. I think there were only two other companies using algorithms at the time for trading options. And it worked really well. I mean, he made a fortune, actually, and retired. And I ended up with a career in fintech because it was hard to look back after that experience. And worked for Morgan Stanley for a while, developing algorithms for trading for them in their derivatives area. And later did high frequency trading and worked for some hedge funds. So that's what got me into this game. But through all of that, AI was still a part of it. And I think the work that I did was a little different from other people in the field because I used a lot of the ideas. We didn't have the same kind of machine learning back then, but there were algorithms that were based on data science principles and didn't use deep learning at the time, but we used expert systems, which were effective, and also some optimization algorithms. But later, when you want to ask a question, Anna, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep.
No, go on. That's really such an interesting story. No, continue, please.
And as you all know, about around 2011, AI started, transformed itself with deep learning really having one breakthrough after another. First in my original area of computer vision with ImageNet, people refer to the ImageNet moment, and deep learning became practical. It wasn't so practical before because there were a lot of mathematical issues as well as technology issues that had to be solved. And I was fascinated by it. So I started delving back into it, and came up to speed in all the papers and started going to the conferences like iClear and so on to catch up. And I had a startup idea of my own at the time to see if we could analyze social media, particularly Facebook at the time, which had an open API to all the posts. And my idea was to see if we could look at company by company what people were thinking and what they were posting on Facebook to see what was going on at the companies, pharmaceuticals. If something good happened and it wasn't announced, perhaps they would be eating out more expensively or buy. And it actually worked very well. And I worked with a number of hedge funds providing that service. But then because of the whole Cambridge Analytica thing, Facebook closed its API and I had to think about what to do. So I got interested in areas of compliance. And I was doing papers on compliance using AI to analyze emails and analyze other communications. And Headhunter said, have you thought about the Federal Reserve? And I hadn't. And I ended up being hired by the Fed to work on bank compliance. And that's started my career there.
Nice. No, that's a great journey. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thanks for staying in fintech for all these years, because I feel like you probably could have retired too. So,
I tried that. It was much fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I don't think I'll ever be retiring either. So, but what does a typical day usually look like for you at work? How do you see this kind of a role like yours evolving as we, get more from, as like the whole kind of regular people and more people get familiar with AI and, machine learning in general?
Well, there's been two major phases, I would say, to what I've been doing at the Fed. The pre-ChatGPT era and the post-pre-ChatGPT era.
Exactly, that's what I meant.
So before ChatGPT, I was working with various businesses, again, particularly compliance and bank supervision, showing them how they could do their work more effectively using natural language processing. And that we collect so much data from the banks as part of our role as a regulator that it's overwhelming. People can't possibly read it all, so they look at what they think might be important, and they have a sort of pyramid of people reading it, and it trickles up. So the first thing I did was design a system which used a small language model, nothing at all like the large language models we have now, but something where they could put in the general idea of what they were looking for, and it could search through all the documents, which was a big step beyond keyword search because that's all they had at the time. This way you could say, I'm interested in something with environmental risk, and anything that discussed it, even if it didn't have those words in it, could be identified. And that was, a big hit. And it was also good timing because this happened right before the lockdown. So we couldn't do in-bank examinations. They relied very heavily on the system. And my basic day was expanding it and getting it to work better. We ended up with over 800 users, and not just in New York, but throughout the Federal Reserve System using that. And then it was turned over to squads and became a regular production process, which didn't require my involvement. I started looking at other things that we could do. And there are many, because as you can imagine, the Fed is a trove of all kinds of data. And so working with various data science teams and trying to figure out how to do it, because the Fed, like a lot of, say, pre-machine learning security in terms of the info security, didn't allow programmers to actually look at production data, which of course is like a complete stop for data science, because data scientists have to be able to get at the data. So it involved working with people to figure out ways of them changing their sort of pre-machine learning ideas. Because before machine learning, you just had to explain business rules and a business process, give it to the coders, they would prepare it, then you would test it and go into production. But the whole machine learning idea, where the data itself creates your model and your algorithm, requires a different security model. So so a lot of my work involved then and still does involve working with the InfoSec people and and governance to sort of free up all this data, because it's, even though they have a tremendous amount of data, they're not comfortable with turning it over for machine learning. But this is now becoming easier and easier to do. And one of my jobs there as a data architect is to work with ways of automating the compliance and governance. We're putting together a data mesh which has governance built in, which makes the security people more comfortable with this. And a lot of it is simply changing the technology to permit safe governance of data for data scientists and machine learning. Now that was the pre-ChatGPT. And you know, I guess it's been a few months or more than a few months. Time's gone by very quickly. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to use it. You know, the case for using ChatGPT and other large language models is so compelling, because people that don't have the skills required to write AI or to do machine learning
We having a little bit of a connection issue again.
Are we okay now with the bandwidth?
Yes, you're okay now. You're good now.
Okay. So all of a sudden, people who never thought they would be using AI themselves started using it. And one of our areas which expressed interest very early on were the communications people that develop
Oh no.
I think things are we okay?
We're okay now, but
myself on
you
the
are
monitor.
breaking up a little bit, yeah.
It's okay now. And one of the things they have to do is explain complex economic principles on social media.
Yep.
And we have something called the Liberty Street Economics blog, which is open. Anyone who wants to can go to that website and look at it. But they say it requires something close to a PhD to understand what our economists are talking about sometimes. And they have people there which read this and rewrite it for our outward-facing website, and it's very laborious. And they said, "Can we try ChatGPT?" So they did, and it worked great. I mean, it worked unbelievably. The prompt was something like, "Take this and rewrite it for social media so someone with a high school education can understand it. And if there are any arcane words or acronyms, explain them as well, or substitute commonly known words." And it did a great job, but they weren't allowed to use it because, like many other companies, we said, "Hey, this stuff may not be safe. It may make up things and may hallucinate. You can like look at this on your..." Again, but I'm back on. Okay, again.
You're back. You're back again.
Okay. So one of the things I have to do, and I'm still working on, is figuring out a safe way for them to put this into production. At the same time, the entire Federal Reserve wants to do various things that are similar to this, because we have so much explaining to do and things are so complicated, or people themselves want to understand what someone else is doing and could use it. And we have a prohibition, which we're in the process of relaxing. We have a sandbox now where people can use it, but can't actually use it professionally in business, but can experiment with it. And so I spend a lot of my day working with the InfoSec people, trying to figure out, you know, what they should be afraid of and what they're not, because there's a lot of misconception out there.
Exactly. That was the net question I was going to ask you next, is what, like, seriously, like, how would they even know if they used it, right? And what are the misconceptions out there? And like, what do you usually say to that, right?
Well, they do know when they use it, because we have excellent InfoSec at the Fed. It's one of the most important departments. They tell us that they get attempted hacks in the tens of thousands per day.
Oh, wow.
And by serious, not just people trying to have some fun, but by foreign agents and so
Of
on. It's
course.
the economic system,
Yep.
and our networks use from everything from money transfers to banks to sanctioning to all kinds of things. So it's a big target. So yeah, in fact, some did try, and they were they were caught immediately, and it caused a lot of firewalls to be put up, which made some legitimate data science work even more difficult while I was being investigated. So I got thrown into
Right.
this immediately,
Of course.
and there's just one of the misconceptions that people have is that these things continuously learn, because one of the things that OpenAI says is that we may use your information, even though it's free, to train the model and so on. But in people's mind, they imagine it remembering everything they put in. And this is reinforced by the way OpenAI does their service, because for each user that's registered, it keeps a transcript of what they've been talking about to refresh the model when they come back. But it's just for them. It's not like someone else could sign up. Because I actually tried this early on. I asked it some questions about myself, which a lot of people do that have, that are written up on the internet. And it turns out it said I invented things, but they were completely different from what I really invented and had all these misconceptions. So I tried explaining to OpenAI all these things at first, and it got it right when it was talking to me. But when it was talking to anyone else, it was the way it was originally. So, and if you really look inside to see how the sausage works, it really just keeps a circulating file of your conversations and just sucks it in every time you connect. So it's not retraining itself. It's not that the weights are changing or anything like that.
Exactly. The last time it was trained, it was 2001, my friends. Like that
Yeah.
information is old. I mean, like there's not, like, if there was anything newer than that came out, it's not there, so like,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Now, what they can do, like with Bing, it can look some things up on the internet, and then it can read that in as well. But it doesn't last. It just reads it into the prompt. And one of the areas people are working on are ways of making that part of something they call a vector database or an embedding database, which can automate this and make it work more efficiently. But it's still not really learning. It's just getting refreshed better over a larger space of information.
Right.
But a lot of my days working with InfoSec. The other thing is education. I had the honor of being invited to our president's lunch. He has a lunch once every 3 months with some other leaders from industry, and they sit around. This time they talked about AI, and I gave a presentation on it. So that was fun and very interesting. And it's very bullish on technology, almost to a frightening level. I mean,
I think we have a little bit, Harry. I think we have a little bit of a connection again issue here. Hopefully he can come back. Yeah, Harry's actually he's vacationing in Italy right now, so we have a little bit of a bandwidth issue. But if we don't get Harry back, this was such a wonderful discussion. If we don't get him back, thank you, Harry, so much for spending time with us today. And Harry has a lot more to share. He was actually on our panel at DSS New York on June 7th, and we're actually going to share that with you guys. And he's going to be back. We're going to be back in, there you are, Harry. Let's see if you can come back. There you are.
I think I'm back now.
I'm glad that we got you back.
Okay.
All right. So you were telling us about the dinner that you had with the president. So definitely want to hear the end of that lunch story before we wrap up.
Yeah, and I heard, I don't think people want their identity revealed who were at the lunch, but there was one person who was runs a major company in the U.S. was saying this is just the first inning for the baseball rule. So I've never seen such an enthusiastic.
Oh no.
So
there you are. Okay, you're back again. So yeah, let's see if you could finish that story and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah. So one of the things I think that we're going to talk about what I think the big misconceptions are. And I think the biggest one is people worrying about the AI apocalypse, that it's somehow going to kill us. I think this is just science fiction, but the idea gets in people's heads. I don't see any reason to believe this, and I'm actually surprised at the number of scientists that have signed on to this belief. I can't explain it, but I certainly don't believe
Yeah,
it.
I don't get it either. So I don't understand it either. I agree with you. Because I feel like it's been here, as you said, for 30 years, right, already, and it hasn't taken over the world yet. So, it's going to take a while
one of the
to do
things
that now.
I think now that it can converse, it's a little more scary to some people. It was always conversing to scientists and mathematicians, but now that it can understand language, it's, I guess, a little more frightening to people because it's their first experience with it. But anyway,
Yeah. Well, Harry, it was really great chatting with you. I'm just afraid we're going to lose you again. But I would love to have you back again when you're back in your office, and we can have, I would like to continue the conversation because I feel like, there's definitely a lot more to cover. So let's do another.
There is one more thing.
Too. Huh?
Okay, there is one more idea I'd like to try, and if I get disconnected in the process, we'll save it for the next one. But one of the things people are asked is like, what's new? What's happening? What should people be aware of? What's coming down the pike in this?
Exactly.
And I think, and I think that it's going to become much easier to train models. I think there's this belief that you have to spend millions of dollars and be a huge company to train a model. And part of that is because the software stack that we're all using, as powerful as it is very inefficient. Particularly the way the Python is connected to the accelerators, such as the GPUs and all the intermediate layers that it goes to. There's a fellow named Chris Latner, who has written a lot of the compilers that we use today, the most popular C compiler and other compilers. He's been in the field for a long time. He's brilliant. He's decided to tackle this with something called the Mojo Project. And
the Mojo Project. Okay, we have to find that. Yeah, if somebody on our team can find that and share it, that would be awesome. Yeah, the Mojo Project, you said, right?
And this has the promise, this and other efforts, he's not the only one in open source working on this, to get it to the point where people should be able to train similar models with about 1,000th the resources, expense, and energy as it presently takes, which would cause, a lot of more things being developed, a lot of democratization. And I think that's the most powerful thing from all of this, is with or without that, putting people. So it's not just limited to the scientists, the data scientists, but other creative people and other business people can experiment with it themselves and come up with ideas which wouldn't occur to some of us. So that's what I'm most happy about.
Awesome. Well, that's a really nice way to end this. And let's do a part 2 and enjoy the rest of the trip. And thank you everybody for joining us. We had a really nice turnout today, and I hope you guys enjoyed the panel and enjoyed the conversation, and have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye.
Thanks, Anna. Bye.